Yo, what's going on, guys? So I haven't done a little video for a while. I've been pretty busy. I say that in every video, but I am. We did a couple proms here just recently. I'll throw in some clips of those here. Actually, you know what? I'll throw in a couple clips of the proms we just did right now. So as you can see, they were pretty big. Some bigger events. We did a lot of stuff, trussing up, a lot of lighting, a lot of sound. I didn't get nearly all the video that I wanted to. I guess that's the problem of not having like a dedicated video person for these events to walk around and take the video, because I'm usually really busy either planning stuff out or actually performing and things like that. So anyway, today what we're gonna do is, I know you guys like equipment reviews and how-tos and things like that. So today we're gonna go over some equipment that I have. I got some stuff set up behind me. You can see them. We'll walk over there in a second, check it out. But today we're gonna go over the DriveRack PA2. So we use the DriveRack for pretty much all of our events. We like to have some sort of active crossover network speaker itself. You know, we're running a lot of active speakers like the passive or the active ZLX 12Ps. And yeah, they have adjustable crossover on it, but it's like only adjustable in like increments. So you get like 80 hertz, 100 hertz, things like that. And sometimes we want a little more granular control of that. So the DriveRack gives us like an infinite amount of, I say infinite, but a infinitely variable amount of crossover, things like that. It gives us some compression if we need. It gives us a hard limiting, because like my amplifiers I have for my subs, they have more power than the subs can handle. So I have to limit how hard I can run those amplifiers so I don't blow my subs up. So I can set up limiting in there, and we'll go through all the pieces of the DriveRack here, but I'll show you around at least what I have set up here, and then we'll get into the actual PA2. All right, so we are over here at the amp rack. I get the light here, I'll move around so we can see a little better. So we have a couple things here in the amp rack. The first thing we have here is a Firmin power conditioner. It's also got some lights on the front. It's real nice whenever we're at a venue and need some light. It also has it's a 15 amp system, so it can only handle 15 amps before that thing will trip, and I've tripped it out before. But it will condition the power, keep things quiet. We have a XR12 mounted in here, and then we have the DriveRack PA2, QSC PLX3402. Usually use this for main speakers if we're running passives, and then two of the NU6000s. These are not the D models. These do not have the DSP in them, but they're the 6,000 watt models. We don't really do 6,000 watts, but it's pretty close. So as you can see, the DriveRack here is active, and I am running a preset. This is preset number 2 because this is for the JBL M Pros, and I'll show you why in a second. Across the front here we have your encoder wheel. It clicks as well. You click it for selecting, and you can see a little bit of what's going on there. For each piece, you can run your wizard here on the front, and then you have additional buttons here for storing, recalling presets, utility menu, and then access for graphic EQ, auto feedback suppression, subwoofer, subharmonic synthesis, crossover, compression limiter,
parametric EQ, delay, and RTA. On the right, you have your meter bridges. So input meters here, and then these are the three pairs of outputs, sorry. Stereo outputs. Each of these is mutable right here, so I can mute each one right through here. Very handy to reach down real quick and mute, a set of outputs if you need to. But that's it physically in the front of it. On the back of it, I'm going to move my light around here real quick and I'll come right back. Alright, now we're on the back of it here. And I apologize for all the things. I'm not going to unwire the thing just to do the video on it. But on the far side here we have our Ethernet jack, USB connection for firmware updates, and then we have our outputs. You have your high, mid, and low outputs. And then far on the right over there is our inputs with a selectable ground lift and things like that. But just XLR ins and outs, nothing too fancy. As you can see, I only have one connected to the low because I was only using one amplifier recently. And the two high outputs go to this QSC amp up top. Alright, so that's the basis of the hardware of it. Nothing, like I said, too extravagant. XLR ins and outs like you'd expect for any pro level equipment. Oh, one thing I did miss on the front, and I lost my light here. Turn the light back on. You can see it. Right here you see I have a standard microphone connector plugged in. This is for the RTA input, which if you're not familiar, RTA stands for real-time analyzer. We'll go over that in a second because we're actually going to use it. We're going to tune these speakers in. So speaker-wise, what I have connected here, grab my light so you can actually see these things because it's dark in the garage. LS1802, dual 18, ported. Pretty hefty unit. Above that, we have our JBL M Pros. What's the model number? Because it's on the back here. 1225s, I think. Or 225. MP225, the JBL M Pros. They are beast of speakers, as you can see here. I'm 6'4". They're dual 15 mains. I'm 6'4". These things are a good bit taller than me on top of these LSs. So, I mean, they get up there. So just stacking an LS and an M Pro does pretty well. It gets it up above people's, gets a tweeter above people's heads, and sounds pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up the computer here, and we'll take a look at the DriveRack PA software, and we'll get these things tuned in. Right now, these M Pros have a really heavy mid-range boost in them, and I don't know if that's because of the hardware that's in them, or if that's just how they sound, but they need to be EQ'd to get them to sound pretty good. So that's what we're going to do today with the software. So let me get this fired up, and we'll get them tuned. All right, so I mentioned the RTA mic, which is plugged into the front of that DriveRack PA2. The RTA mic is right here. Flip it around so you can see it like this. This is the RTA mic. It is made by DBX. It is the one that they recommend. If you can if it'll focus there. It is a condenser mic. Does require phantom power if you want to run it on your own. I have ran this one directly into an audio interface with Smart before for venues and stuff like that. It's a good mic, super flat response, and it's worth a little bit of extra money if you're actually going to use it to tune a PA with. So you can use any condenser mic that's made for RTAs like that because they'll have a good flat response. But this one was the one made for this unit, so that's the one we're going to use. Just a single XLR from the back of the thing down across and over into the front of the drive rack. So that's the RTA mic setup. Pretty simple, and we'll see that in the software, and we'll be able to work with it there. All right, so we're going to fire up the PA2 application here. One little caveat I didn't mention before, and I apologize because I'm using the camera on my Surface here. I don't have a good way to capture the screen on this thing because I'm connected to the Wi-Fi on this. But the back of that drive rack has a Ethernet connection, and I showed you that before. And you can actually zoom in on the front here, and we'll see that this guy has a IP address. If it'll focus, it has the IP address there of 1.2. On the back of that unit with the Ethernet jack, that is connected to a little wireless router that's in that rack. It's nothing fancy. It's a real cheap, just wireless router, and literally that's the only thing connected to it. But what I can do is I can connect my computer here to that wireless router that's in there. As you can see here, you'll see the Rack 2 there. I can connect to that, and that allows me to control the PA2 from a computer. And so they make a PA2 application. You can go to the DriveRack DBX website, download the application, and then you can control your drive rack remotely. Now you can do most of these functions that you can do on the app here, you can do on the unit itself, but it's much easier just to be able to handle it on a computer. It's just easier all around. So once you're connected to the same network that your drive rack is on, you can fire up the application. We'll just search for devices here. And I hope you guys can see this okay. Try to do it here. Alright, so now it has discovered it. So we're just going to tap on our drive rack here. It's going to load everything in. And here we are. So I'll just run you through each piece individually. On the left hand side here, this is the input stage. So this is our left-right in. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to take it through a graphic EQ. It's going to then go through the auto EQ. Now, as you can see, this one's a little bit lighter than that one because the audio EQ is enabled. This is just the chain. Not everything has to be enabled or be used, obviously. But yeah, it hits the audio EQ. Advanced feedback suppression. If you're running this thing live, you can use the feedback suppression for feedback suppression on the mics. Subharmonic synth, pretty normal. Input compressor, and then input delay. That's the input stage there. Now we'll go through the RTA and stuff down here in a second. Then it hits the crossover. This is the crossover here. And then you have each individual output. Each individual output has its own parametric EQ, its own limiter, and its own alignment delay. And then up at the top, we just got some basic stuff. You can tap the meter bridge here, and it will bring up a larger version of that meter bridge here when you can see it. And then you can actually tap each of these LRs at the bottom, and that will mute those outputs. So you can mute your outputs here, and if you watch up on the drive rack itself, you'll see the little red lights light up underneath as I enable and disable muting on channels. Alright, so now that we're going here, what I'm going to do is I have some music playing on my phone, but the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to default this drive rack. It has a ton of presets built into the device, which we can see here. I have two on the top are mine. The rest of them are the presets that are built in from DBX. All kinds of stuff. Most of these are for specific types of speakers, like the PR12W with the PR sub, K12, yeah, here we go, the QSC K12s with the K sub. You can load that preset and it will auto configure the crossovers and the EQ for those speakers. The presets are a good place to start. There's a ton of them in here. And if you run the wizard, you can just select your type of speakers and it'll pick the preset for you. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to load this top one, which is called ZLX's No EQ. I'm going to load this one because it is pretty flat and doesn't really have much going on. And this is going to be pretty similar to what it would be like if you bought the unit fresh out of the box. Alright, so I just loaded the preset, and as soon as you load presets, what happens is it mutes all the outputs, which is what you would expect. Because you run a new preset, you don't want to ruin your speakers and stuff like that with it blaring out if the levels are different. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute them since I have my volume really low on my source. And here is the page for this specific preset. Whoa, sorry there. As you see on the input side, I don't have anything going here. I'm not using any graphic EQ, no auto, nothing on the input side. So it's just straight through on the input side. I do hit the crossover. I am using the crossover, of course, and then I'm using the top output here, the high output for my main speakers, and then the low output for my subs. I'm not using the mid output in this situation here. And then I'm using the parametric EQ and a limiter on those. So let's take a look at the crossover section here, and let's take a look at what I have. All right, here's the crossover section. As you can see, it is color coded here. Try to get this all in frame here, and I apologize. So what we can see here is this high output here. I have a mid output in yellow, and then a low output in red. And this span, this graph here, is from 20K or from 20 hertz, actually a little below 20 hertz, to 20 kilohertz. So this is our normal audible, human audible range here. And so what I'm doing is my highs, which are my main speakers, I have them crossed over at 79 hertz is what I have here. So basically anything from 79 hertz back is getting sloped off and rolled off, which you can see in this graph here by negative 60 dB at the bottom here at 20 hertz. So it's going to slope everything off because my main speakers aren't going to be able to reproduce the deep lows anyway. I want my subs to do that, and you can see in the red there the piece that my subs are going to be taking over on. So my lows here, we'll look at that. I am low passing the subs so that only stuff from 75 hertz and below go to the subs. I don't need to give my subs any high frequency information because they're not going to reproduce it anyway. So my subs get all the lows, they don't get any of the highs. Helps them be more efficient. I also have a high pass on the subs, as you can see here. I keep that on with the subs that I have. I usually recommend doing this if you have a crossover or anything else. High pass your subs. Most of your consumer subwoofers, even most pro subwoofers, aren't going to reproduce frequencies below 30 hertz very well anyway. 30 hertz is, I mean, obviously, you know, they say, what you hear everywhere, 20 hertz is the limit of human frequency hearing. That's pretty true, but from 30 hertz to 20 hertz, you really can't hear a whole lot in there. At least I can't. I know most people can't as well. So what I do is I high pass my subs at 30 hertz. So they still get, I mean, down at 20 hertz, you still have, it's still at negative 30 there. So I still have some information coming through there. But most of the information that's down below 30 is not in the music anyway. And so anything that I have below 30 is going to be just wasted movement of the woofers and wasted power going to the woofers. When I high pass my subs at 30 hertz, it cleans them up. They're still super deep and super low, but they're not wasting a bunch of energy and they're more efficient. So they're louder when I do that. So something you can experiment with. I recommend trying a high pass on your subs just to see how it is. Play around with it. But yeah, most of it's just trial and error. See what it looks like on your system and try it. I like it, so that's what we use here. So I high pass and low pass my subs, so I just have a little piece of frequency information going to the subs and everything else is going to the highs. So I'm not using the mid outputs, I'm not even going to feature that. My high pass right now is at 79 hertz, no low pass, and I can also adjust the gains of each piece here. So like if my subs are running a little hot or something like that, I can actually turn them down here on the drive rack. When it's unlocked, it's locked right now. It warns me that when you unlock this, you can damage your speakers because you can amplify and so forth here. So like I could amplify my subs enough to blow them up, kind of deal. But like I can cut my subs down a little bit if I need to here, and it's all managed here on the drive rack. I don't have to touch my speakers. That way, if I have like multiple sets of ZLXs, I don't have to set each one individually. I just plug them into this system and they're ready to go. So I'm not going to save this preset, so I'll just leave that there. All right, so let's bump back to the home here. That's the crossover section. And then here's the high output. Here's a parametric EQ. I have a little dip here at 1K. That was just a little bit of tuning that I needed for the room that I was in the last time. But you have up to 8 individual EQ parameters. So I can put, bumps here, dips here, wherever. I can do whatever I need to. I can do up to 8 of them, which will adjust the curve here. Now this is just for that specific output. So I'm actually going to turn this off. This is just that specific output. So the rest of the outputs aren't going to be affected by this. So obviously I could put a bump down here, but it's not going to make a difference because these are high passed. So they're high passed before this EQ. I have it turned off right now, so it won't be affecting the chain. You can turn them on and off for comparison, which is really nice to be able to do. So, and then low output, I have a little dip here. These subs have a bit of a, that's the resonant frequency of the box pretty much. And so I dip it there a little bit so it keeps it linear as they go across. If they do like a sweep, you don't hear a big bump right here. It's a little above, so this is probably not perfectly accurate. This is probably just, I hand put it in there last time. Of course, on and off here as well. The limiters, here's the limiter for the high output. Here, it's pretty much exactly what you think. You set a threshold, and then it won't let it go any higher than that. Once it gets to that certain level, it's gonna brick wall it, which is good to protect your subs and everything else with. It also has the over easy option, which as you can see introduces a little bit of a curve into that, so it's not quite such a hard limit. It's more of a, it works its way into the limit rather than just brick walling it. So sometimes that can help things sound a little better, especially on high outputs. And that's pretty much it for output section. It's pretty simple. Input section, we have a graphic EQ. This is a 31 band graphic EQ. You can grab an individual frequency and move it up or down. You can draw a curve. You can do whatever you need to. You can flatten it with the button here. It has some presets. Here's a DJ preset, bumping the highs, bumping the lows, cutting off the junk at the end, and then dipping the mids. I personally don't, just leave this flat. If I'm going to do any like system EQing, it's going to be on a mixer or something like that. So I leave this alone. But you can use this if you need it. Obviously, it's an effective 31 band EQ. And then, no, this is on the input side, so this is going to affect the input. What do you have coming into the inputs? So this is not per speaker. This is just per everything comes into the drive rack. Auto EQ, we'll go over that next because that's going to be part of that. Advanced feedback suppression, you can turn this thing on, and what it's going to do is it's going to analyze all the frequencies. It's going to look for bumps, and then if it finds a bump, like something's feeding back, it's going to pull it down a little bit, see what's going on, and it's going to dynamically move things around so that no one frequency gets above all the rest of them like feedback would. Has a couple different types down here, speech music, live. You can tell it how long you want it to hold that notch. If it's got one right now, it's set for 5 seconds. It'll lift it after that. You can set fixed filters as well. Tons of different features on this thing. I don't typically use this because if I have feedback, I'm taking care of it at the source. I'll notch the monitor output or something like that. But this can be very handy. I don't use it, so I can't go into super detail of this thing. But I mean, kick this thing on, and then you check it out. If you're in a live mode, if you're just playing music, you can flip it over to music, and there you go. All right, so that's pretty much it for the feedback suppression. Bump back over here. Turn that back off. Subharmonic synthesis. You can use this. What it does is it will generate subharmonics for your music if you don't, if your music doesn't have proper low end in it. So like, whoa, sorry, bumped the camera there. So like here, you can adjust what kind of, how much of the 36 to 56 hertz gets generated. And what it's going to do is it's basically going to listen to the music and generate basically like an octave lower sometimes of the bass line and things like that. So if you have music that doesn't have good low end, or you have like a source that doesn't have good low end, you can kick this on, and this will really bump up your subs. You get a lot more low end out of it. But you have to remember this is generated low end, and it's not actual low end from the music source you have. I usually prefer to just make sure that my source has appropriate low end, and then you will never need this kind of thing. But it's here if you need it. It's actually come in handy before. I had a DJ one time that had a board that somehow was high pass and everything, and turned this on, got some low end back out of it, sounded pretty good. It's got an input compressor. It's the same thing as before. You can adjust your ratio, whether or not it's an over easy. And makeup gain you can add here, and then of course the threshold that it decides to pull things down at. This is an input compressor, so if you don't have a compressor on your board or whatever, you're running into this. And an input delay, you can actually delay your input as well, up to 100 milliseconds, which is pretty hefty, or 112 feet. So you can actually delay your input as well, and then you can add additional delay on your output side as well. So if this rack is in like at a delay tower or something like that, and it's 100 feet away, you can just set your input delay here, and then everything else can stay the same. It's just easier that way since all outputs are going to be delayed the same. So that's a good feature to have. And that's it for the audio chain. Top left, you have a device discovery. We've already connected our device, we don't need to do that. And then down here, we have our RTA section and our signal generator section. So first we'll look at the signal generator, and this is super simple. It's just you can generate pink noise or white noise, and you can adjust the volume. So pink noise or white noise. And I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. So if you're not familiar, pink noise is all frequencies of the audible spectrum at the same level. White noise is all frequencies of the audio spectrum at differing levels, at random levels. So pink noise, you generate pink noise. That's a good one to, if you're looking for a flat EQ, you can use the RTA with pink noise and get a good idea of what your system's sounding like. So we're going to actually use that in a second. So let's go over to the RTA here, and here we go. Let me make sure it's all plugged in. Yep, we're all plugged in. So this is a full spectrum here from 20 kilohertz to 20 hertz. And I can bump up probably the low end here and you can see my voice. So yeah, this is it's not real granular, as you can see. You can definitely tell my voice is pretty heavy in the 200 to 500 range there, up to 1K. I can snap. You hear the high frequencies up there. And so this is just going to give us an accurate representation of what, a semi-accurate representation of what that RTA mic hears and what's coming out of the system. So this is that mic that I have plugged in back there, and this is what we're seeing. So I'm going to bump that back down a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate that pink noise, and we're going to see what this looks like. So we'll go to signal generator, pink, bump it up a little bit. And mind you, I have the subs kind of cranked right now, so I may need to adjust the subs a little bit just to get a better idea of what's going on here. Whoop. All right, we'll go back. All right, so I hope you can still hear me. If you can't, I'll overdub this. But obviously you see we have a pretty big hump right there, just below 80, about 70 or so. That's kind of where the subs are kicking in. We're crossing over about 70, 80. So the subs are pretty high level, that's why it's up there. We have a little bit of a dip around 2K. Pretty big hump around 5, and we kind of taper off towards 20. Real big presence right in here, right around 200 or so. 100 to 500 right in there. It's pretty high. Shouldn't kind of look like this. This is not very flat, as you can see. My voice is still coming through, that's why it's jumping there a little bit. Alright, so we'll turn that off for a second. Yeah, so these speakers, I'm going to run some music through it, and I'll play a little sample here, and I'll let you hear what it sounds like. These JBLs have a bit of a, they don't really sound that good flattened, and so we'll go over that, how to fix them here. So let's take a listen to a little bit of music here, and see if we can find something that sounds good. Pretty heavy in the mids there, you can hear. Alright, that was just a little sample because I don't know if YouTube's going to get that one. You could hear they're pretty harsh. I mean, pretty harsh. That's one of the main complaints I have about them, is they're pretty harsh. The subs sound good. The subs always sound good. Those are good subs. But those JBLs need a little bit of work. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire up the RTA Wizard, and then we're going to see if we can make these things sound better. We'll let it kind of do its own little tuning there, and then we'll edit it from there. So what we're going to do is we are going to run the auto EQ. And so what we want to do here is we don't really need the level assist because I can adjust my own levels. We want the EQ. So if you remember from that main strip, we had the audio EQ right at the beginning. What we're going to do is we're going to fire up the auto EQ Wizard, and we'll let it's going to run some test tones across the system, and then it's going to listen to those peaks and those dips, and then make adjustments with the EQ itself to help flatten it out. So hit auto EQ only. And the RTA mic is connected, and it says place it as shown, if you can see it there. So we kind of have it placed right in the middle. I'm going to leave that mic alone. I'm not going to move it for these tests because I don't really want to deal with that right now. This will get a pretty good idea. So when we hit continue, it's going to make some sweeping sounds, and you'll hear them on the camera here. So I have to be quiet when I start this. All right, so we're just going to do 2 RTA measurements. We don't need to do 4. You can do 4 if you have the time, but we'll just do 2 for now. All right, it's going to position 1, so we're going to hit OK on that one and let it do its sweep. All right, I am going to move the mic just a little bit over to the one side. All right, mic has been moved, and we'll hit continue. Let it sweep again. All right, so now what it's going to do is it's going to calculate an auto EQ based off of those sweeps and how those speakers sounded. So we'll see if the auto EQ makes it sound any less harsh and a little bit better here. It takes a second because these have a lot of things that need to be adjusted on them. So over there on the unit itself, it's actually saying calculating. Okay, here we go. All right, look at that. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So there's 3 colors here. I'll see if my camera can get them. The gray is the room, yellow is the target. So you see it's one sweep for the target. We want heavy lows and flat highs. And the green is the result, and there's a wavy green line in there. And I don't know how well you can see it on this camera, but I'll kind of zoom in there. Oh, it really does not want to focus on that. There is a wavy green line there you can see right in the middle. It's real light. That is the green line. It's is the result of its EQ. I did notice it's kind of got some stuff kind of rolled off here at the top, so we'll take a listen to that in a second and see how it sounds. So we'll continue on that. The wizard is complete. All right, so if we go back to home here, now we can see auto EQ is lit up because it's enabled, and this is what we had. So let's play that same song and see what it sounds like. Already it's nowhere near as harsh. Alright, it actually sounds a good bit better. Still needs some work on that. Some of it's mic, where your mic position is and stuff like that. Obviously you want to put your RTA mic in your listening position and so forth. But what I can do is I can actually go in here and I can edit this if I want. And you'll see it adjust the curves and stuff there as I move it around to get it to where I like it. And so I've got it dealt pretty well. You can see my hump here, this number 5 here. That's that hump I was talking about on those subs. You can see it's there, and so it notches that out to help make it a little bit flatter on the low end. A little bit of the boost on the deep lows because that position that it's in right there is a little far from where the sweet spot is in this room, because I mean this room I'm in is all plywood walls, as you saw, so that's to be expected. But other than that, I mean, this is a good way to get you started on an EQ. If you feel like it's a little harsh, and you can bring down your high mids here a little bit and hear how it sounds. You bump your crisp highs up there above 10K, make it sound good. 4 is a little bit of a boost here around 4, and I may bring that down a little bit, get a little more of a flat. Little notch around 2 won't hurt anything, a little less harsh on your ears. But yeah, that's the auto EQ. Alright guys, so as you saw there, we kind of went through the DriveRack PA2. If you guys have questions, please leave them in the comments. I know I didn't cover absolutely everything, but that was just kind of a getting started, I guess you'd say, for what a DriveRack is. We love them. I love the ability, if I'm at a venue, I can connect the wireless access point on it, and not on it, but my own access point in the rack with an Ethernet cable, and I can adjust stuff. So if I'm at a venue and I hear it's kind of harsh, I can go in there to either the auto EQ if you got that running, pull down those high mids if I want. I can also go to the individual output, it's parametric EQ. I can make a notch there. I got a couple places that I can make fine tunings for my venue. A lot of people go in, they plug in a powered main and a powered sub and chain them together, and they may or may not set the crossovers on them correctly. And it makes a huge difference if you use your crossovers well. Now, like if you're using like a ZLX 12P and a ETX 18SP, they both have pretty good EQ crossover points on them, so you can use those. Definitely use those. If you want some more control, then's where a DriveRack like PA2 comes into play. You can really kind of fine tune things. Our company, we have a guy who's got 2 of the ETX 18SPs, and he got a DriveRack recently, and he had never heard of high passing subs before. And when you're running subs in a high level situation where you're running a lot of subs and you're running them heavy because you have a big venue or you're outdoors, efficiency is going to be key here. And so he had never heard about high passing, so I told him about that one day,
And he did that. He got into his drive rack, he high passed them at about 30, and he said those things came alive. They were a lot louder, they were a lot cleaner, because they weren't trying to reproduce these low frequencies that people couldn't hear, even at the venue. You know, maybe the sub can reproduce it, but it's not going to reproduce it really, really well, anything below 30. Yeah, I know all your graphs online, stuff like that say, oh, your subs cover from 20 to 75 or whatever. And if you look at the actual curves, they start sloping off usually a little bit below 30. Yeah, he said they came alive. They sounded so much better. And so, you know, anything that we can do to help make our stuff sound better and perform better, we're gonna do. There's no sense in not. So yeah, try that out, check it out. If your subs have the ability to high pass them, high pass them. I've also done system high passing as well on a board and stuff like that to clean things up, and cleanliness is key. When you have things separated like this, you have your highs separated and your lows separated frequency wise, you clean it a lot. You clean it up a lot. My tops are not trying to reproduce anything that's below a certain frequency range. So they're not gonna be muddy and trying to reproduce these lows that the subs are already reproducing efficiently and well. But the mains aren't gonna reproduce those deep lows real efficiently. So there's no sense in sending those frequencies to the mains. Just send them to the subs, let them do their job, and they're gonna sound great. Same with the subs. Your subs will get real muddy if you don't if you don't low pass them. You start giving those high frequencies to the subs, they're not really meant to reproduce high frequencies. They're only meant to reproduce low frequencies. So separating them out makes a huge difference. So, all right, so we're gonna fire these up, and we'll take a listen here. And I'll mute the highs and then mute the lows, and you can kind of hear the clear separation they have. I hope this camera mic picks it up okay. If not, I apologize, but trust me, it is there. As much as you can trust someone on the internet. Here we go. Nice and crisp. Mute the subs here a little bit, we'll play it again. No subs this time. Here's a little bit of the bass guitar in there, but not a ton, you know. But no, yeah, pretty clean. Fire for subs. See what subs sound like. Now, if you're not wearing headphones, you're not going to be able to hear that. You're probably just hearing my soffit rattling in the garage. Yeah, more than likely. But anyway, as you can hear, there's no highs or mids in those subs at all. Clear separation between the two. With the mains, you probably did hear a little bit of the bass guitar and stuff like that, which is to be expected. They're cut off about 75 or so. Those are dual 15 mains, so those low mids they can really reproduce effectively. So that's why they're in there on these. But yeah, let's fire that up one more time. Now, obviously, high-level subs, you're going to see that kind of stuff, but that's the kind of EQ curve you'd expect to see if you brought that RTA mic to a big concert. Good, solid, low end. It makes a big difference when you have good, solid, low end like that. So, anyway, that's enough for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A lot of information there. Hope it didn't bore you too much either. I'm good at that. So if you have questions, let me know. I'd be glad to answer them as best I can. And have fun, experiment with your equipment. figure out what works best, set it up in the garage. If you have a place to set up your equipment, I know a lot of DJs who don't set up any of their equipment until they're at a gig, or unless they're at a gig, you know. If you have the opportunity, the time to play and the time to make your stuff sound good is when you're not under any deadlines or under pressure. Like, I got this stuff set up right now. I'm not gonna be using this for like 2 weeks, you know, kind of stuff. I have a whole other set in the trailer as well. So I have the ability to kind of play around, get this stuff figured out ahead of time. So try that out. I recommend it for everybody. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. This will probably be, we're right at 500 subscribers. So, I mean, for as much as that's worth, I just do this for fun. I don't do this for anything else. Hopefully to share some information. So thank you to all who have subscribed. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed and you made it to the end of this video, subscribe. I got some cool tutorials on here. I'm gonna start doing more equipment stuff. I was doing a lot of gig logs and stuff like that. And I find that most of the time I don't have a dedicated camera person, and I spend most of my time at like weddings and stuff like that concentrating on my event. I'm not gonna sit there and try to hold a camera up while I'm trying to do transitions or trying to do announcements and remember to hit the record. I don't have time for that. Not my style anyway. So if you guys want more gig logs, let me know in the comments. If you want more of those, I'll try to do some here and there. My big ones we'll probably try to do still, big proms and things like that. But for the most part, I'm going to try to stick to kind of equipment reviews and stuff like that. So if you have a piece of equipment that you see somewhere that you want me to review, I'd be glad to do it. I'll get into smart here eventually too with the RTA mic and stuff like that to show how I can be at a live situation and see really what's happening with the PA, where my ears might fool me and stuff like that. So always good to have. Rebuilt a generator recently, so I may do something on that about using generators with a mobile DJ and stuff like that, or live sound. So anyway, thanks very much. I'll catch you next time.